Disney just announced its entire streaming future, Warner Brothers and HBO Max piss a lot of people off while making a very ballsy move, and there's probably going to be a shit ton of people in Spider-Man 3. You can learn about all of this and more on today's episode of the Movie Night Show. Hello everyone, my name is Dalton Burdett with the Movie Nights, and if you're watching this, it's because you want to hear my uncensored and unfiltered thoughts and opinions about the world of movie news. And kicking things off, let's go with the big one. A few weeks ago, Warner Media has announced that their entire 2021 theatrical slate is going to debut on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time, much like their strategy with Wonder Woman 1984, which comes out this Christmas. There's some key differences, though, which I'm about to get into. Obviously, this doesn't really bode well for movie theaters. The only thing that really helps movie theaters with this deal is that, one, they're still coming to theaters, and the theaters aren't doing very well right now, and two, they're going to play on HBO Max for a month, and then they'll play another month exclusively in theaters before the studio then takes those films and does their at-home normal things like PVOD, Blu-ray, that kind of thing. Now, a lot of people in the industry are extremely upset by this action, and for one reason that not a lot of people are really seeing. See, a lot of people think that the main reason a lot of industry people are upset is because, like, oh, they're just mad that it's not going to play in movie theaters, it's going to be streaming at the same time. And while that's part of the anger and part of the issue, there's actually a much bigger one, and that is Warner Media and Warner Brothers didn't tell any of the people involved that they were going to be making this decision. They didn't tell Legendary Pictures, which has Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune coming out. They didn't tell any of the actors, any of the directors. Hell, Denis Villeneuve did a scathing article in Variety talking about how disappointed he was with this decision, and even saying that he found out about the deal from the news. In that article, he goes on to mention that Warner Brothers probably just killed the Dune franchise because there's no way it can be financially successful once we're in pre-COVID and whenever the world eventually gets back to normal with the vaccine on the horizon. It seems like that may be by next summer or next fall. Christopher Nolan also did a savage little burn when he said the following: "Some of the world's greatest filmmakers and movie stars went to bed thinking that they were working for the best movie studio and woke up realizing they were working for the worst streaming service." Yeesh. But if you read into Nolan's comments even more, he's more disappointed with the fact that nobody was consulted or told about their products rather than it just not, respecting the theatrical window. And a lot of filmmakers feel betrayed by this, mostly because with Wonder Woman 1984, when that deal came out, that it was going to be in theaters and HBO Max on Christmas at the same time, Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot signed back-end deals for box office profits on that movie. And when you put it on a streamer, that really kind of killed whatever you thought that was going to end up being. So to combat what happened, Warner Brothers came to them and made a deal saying, hey, if Wonder Woman 1984 would have made $1 billion at the box office, you guys would have gotten $10 million bonuses. We're going to assume that it would have, so here you go, and they paid them out. Now, $10 million is going to calm down a lot of people that have an issue with your decision, so that's understandable. The problem is, apparently, they're not doing that with any of the other people of the 17 other films who have back-end deals. And that's why people are very pissed off, especially the DGA. There are even talks of a strike happening at the DGA against Warner Brothers, which is a lot bigger than people understand. Now, I should point out, there is no current plans or plan to actually strike, from what I understand, just talks. But if, let's say, hypothetically it did happen, it's likely that the WGA and SAG would also join them in their boycott, as the unions tend to all be kind of buddy-buddy with one another. That would be very bad news for Warner Brothers. They'd have to hire people like me to make their films. They don't want that. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. We'll see if they are going to work out these deals with these other filmmakers, or if they're going to let it happen. But something that I think they need to do much sooner rather than later is the price of HBO Max has to be increased before Christmas. The reason I say that is because right now it costs $15.99. And according to Warner Brothers, this is only a 2021 plan for this day-and-date theatrical release thing, HBO Max thing, which, if it's successful, they're obviously going to do it again in 2022, and if it's not, they're going to abandon it. I'm going to play devil's advocate here and give you two scenarios on what would happen in each scenario. If it was unsuccessful, let's say we get the vaccine distributed earlier as planned, theaters bounce back, and all that happens, well, now they've kind of dug themselves into a hole. If it's unsuccessful, and it doesn't bode very well, and they decide not to do the same thing in 2022, Well, then a lot of subscribers are going to be upset that they signed up at $15.99 a month to get brand new movies released on the streaming service, and then suddenly the next year, that's not happening anymore. So I feel like if you're Warner Brothers, you have to raise the price of HBO Max just for that possibility, so that if in 2022 you decide not to do the same thing, you can then take the price down back to $15.99 to show the subscribers that they were paying premium for that day and date release model. Now, if it's very successful and they continue in 2022, they can even continue raising the price, gaining subscribers, and it's nothing but a win-win. But either way, I think before Christmas the price needs to be raised, or I could see some really bad falling out between HBO Max and its subscribers. Heading on over to the Disney company, a few days ago, Disney had their big Investors Day, where they talked about all kinds of shit. They were announcing things that hadn't been previously announced. It was almost like a Hall H thing, but just for investors. On the Lucasfilm side, you had new Star Wars movies and TV shows being announced. You're going to have 2 spin-offs of The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, based off of her appearance in Mandalorian and just, her origination in Clone Wars and Rebels. You have Rangers of the New Republic, which is said that and Ahsoka are said to take place around the same time as The Mandalorian, and that they will all cross over for a big event, and they will all be showrun by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and they've been very successful with Mandalorian, so I think the shows are in pretty good hands. They announced more about the Andor series, which is about Cassian Andor, the character from Rogue One. They showed a little behind-the-scenes reel of that series being made, and it looks really interesting. They're also doing an animated Bad Batch series. They're also doing a series called The Acolyte, which takes place in the High Republic era, and it's going to be told from a Sith point of view, which sounds fucking awesome. They also released more details on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, saying it will take place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, and that Hayden Christensen is going to return to play Darth Vader. All awesome stuff. That series will also be directed by Deborah Chow, who directed some of the best episodes of Season 1 of The Mandalorian. I may be forgetting about some shows, and if I am, I'm so sorry. But on the movie side of things, they gave a little bit of information about Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie, but just saying that he's working on it and that he'll bring his style to it, which we all expected. But the really big announcement, something that hadn't been announced at all, was Patty Jenkins is going to make the next theatrically released Star Wars movie for 2023, and it's going to be a Rogue Squadron movie. And they even released a very cool video of her talking about her father being a fighter pilot who died serving his country, and how she's wanted to make the best fighter pilot movie of all time, and that she's going to do that in the Star Wars world, which is just so awesome, which of course leads to tons of speculation as to which characters of the Rogue Squadron are we going to see. I'm hoping for Wedge Antilles. Marvel. Wow, they announced all kinds of stuff. They dropped trailers for WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki, and Kevin Feige himself confirmed that WandaVision was going to connect with Doctor Strange in their upcoming Spider-Man film, Doctor Strange being Multiverse of Madness. They confirmed that Sam Raimi was going to be directing the film. They also made all kinds of announcements of a Secret Invasion show, an Armor Wars show. They talked about Miss Marvel. They briefly talked about Moon Knight. They talked about She-Hulk. They talked about Ironheart, which they officially said for the first time. Again, if I'm forgetting some things, please let me know in the comments. I'm so sorry. And also, the big one, at least in my opinion, is they announced that they are officially doing a Fantastic Four film, and it's going to be directed by John Watts, who directed the MCU Spider-Man trilogy. But speaking of Spider-Man, they briefly mentioned it, but didn't talk about it much, probably because Spider-Man is owned by Sony, and that whole thing. But I really wanted to dive into more about talking about Spider-Man 3, because there were all kinds of rumors and speculation that this could be the live-action Spider-Verse movie that a lot of us have been wanting, with confirmation of some characters from other universes showing up and heavily rumored ones of others. I needed to bring in someone to talk about this, so I decided to grab a fellow movie night and avid Spider-Man fan, Mr. Nick Aricchio. Nick!
Hello!
With you being an avid Spider-Man fan, and just fans of all things Marvel, and, you kind of have some insight into how the movie business works, working on all the short films and whatnot, I want to get your insight into what this is. So go ahead and give us a little rundown on who's confirmed, who's not confirmed, what's rumored, what could potentially happen with this third Spider-Man film.
Well, we know the biggest bombshells have come in the fact that Jamie Foxx is confirmed to be Electro in it.
Yes.
As well as Alfred Molina returning as Doc Ock. And, we don't know for sure if they're playing the same iterations as they were in Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, or if they are going to be the MCU's version of Otto Octavius and Max Dillon that just happen to be the same actors because that'll happen in a multiverse, or if, when Jamie Foxx gets short-circuited, he gets sent through a time warp hole through electricity, and if Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, his metal reactor just opened a portal and he got shot, who knows? Whatever the writers want.
Yes, exactly. But I wanted to get some insight into, you know, why do you think Sony, is sort of all in on the Spider-Verse idea? I mean, we know that the animated film a few years ago was very successful. It's also an excellent movie. And we know that Marvel on the Disney side has also hinted at multiverse stuff before, with Kevin Feige even confirming that Doctor Strange to Spider-Man and WandaVision are all going to have an interconnecting story, and with Doctor Strange also being a part of the Spider-Man 3 cast. Why do you think Sony really wants this to happen? What do you think the idea behind it is? Because even back to like 2014, 2015, they were trying to do like a Sinister Six type movie, which who knows if they even still want to do that with their Venomverse going on with, Venom, Morbius, Venom 2, all that kind of stuff. So just where do you think the mindset is with just, this kind of live action story?
Money. No, I think it's, it could be a number of things. It could be, Tom Holland's always had a weird contract with Sony and Marvel. So it could be they're setting up a multiverse to launch him into the Sonyverse at the end of his contract when that's due. But really, I think it just opens up the possibilities for a bunch of other things. On the Marvel side, introducing the multiverse gets you to tell a bunch of Elseworld stories that you can do. So like Doctor Strange with Multiverse of Madness, there could be sequels to stuff down the line. Like Nick Cage wants to come back and do a third Ghost Rider, which we would all hope for, or just any. It just opens the possibility for returning characters, different iterations of characters, to be introduced through that. And on Sony's side, the same thing. And being able to open up a multiverse has, Sony's always really wanted to make Sinister Six, and that possibility comes reality with a multiverse because they don't really have to spend a movie establishing a villain when they can just pluck Alfred Molina's Doc Ock that everyone knows into a new movie. And you can also have the crossovers with like Garfield, Maguire, and it opens up the possibilities to branch off of that because, in retrospect, a lot of people keep talking about how good Andrew Garfield was Spider-Man, which he was, but now they're saying like, oh, it could be a third movie for that. It could be a fourth Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, but I think actually probably going more toward the Garfield would be the possibility. But it just opens it up for a lot of different possibilities.
That's very true. So I'll go and ask you: Do you think Maguire and Garfield are showing up? Do you think it's going to happen?
I think if they do, it's going to cameo. I think we might get a little more out of Garfield, and then I think a brief kind of Toby appearance that might lead into. I think if they're going to do a Spider-Verse live action Spider-Verse, it's going to be its own movie. It's not going to be shoehorned into Spider-Man 3. So I think we might get like maybe toward the end of the movie, Andrew Garfield shows up, and they might have a few scenes together. But I think the kicker, whether it's a post-credit or the final shot of the movie, would be Tobey Maguire, or at least a tease of him, like you see the suit, but you don't see Maguire, whatever it be. But I think it's very, no reports have confirmed them being in it yet, but the speculation is high and the rumors are very high. A lot coming from very credible sources.
Yeah, and like the odds of them being in it get ever so increased when Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina are coming back. And
exactly. I think the respective, like Kirsten Dunst and Emma Stone, the respective MJ and Gwen Stacy, I think they've been heavily rumored to appear as well. So when you have that, you can't not have the Spider-Man. Otherwise, why do any of that? Why bring in MJ and Gwen if you're not going to have them in it? Like the villains is one thing, but if you're going to get them, then
yeah, no, it's true. It's very true, and I hope they show up. I mean, like if I hear the Danny Elfman Spider-Man score from those movies, I'm gonna absolutely lose my mind. But yeah, no, I think if they are in it, it's gonna be bigger than a cameo, but less than a small role, like a happy medium right in there. And so
minutes screen time.
yeah, and and who knows what deal that Sony and Marvel, or Sony and Disney, I should say, worked out after they renegotiated their terms. Because we know that Tom Holland's going to be in one more Spider-Man movie, and I believe one more Marvel movie, at least as the right now, before it gets re-upped again, if they decide to do that. Who knows? Maybe as part of that deal, speculation is maybe Tobey wants to team up with his buddy Sam Raimi on Doctor Strange 2. Who knows? Now, normally, under normal circumstances, that'd be a huge legal nightmare, and there's no way, but who knows what was negotiated in that re-up deal. And one more thing on the topic of Spider-Man 3, a report came out in Murphy's Multiverse, which is not Hollywood Reporter, it's not Variety, it's not Deadline, but
Mhm.
they haven't lied really a whole lot in the past. They've been accurate before. And so while it's not an official source, it's not officially confirmed, they are reporting that Charlie Cox is coming back as Daredevil. And I want to know, would you be happy to see that, one? And two, you know, let's assume that, you know, Marvel made this agreement with Netflix to buy that specific iteration of the character because they got the rights back after 2 years after cancellation, but I think they can't use that iteration of the character without some other legal things going on, but they probably could have. If that's
I
true,
mean, money saw anything.
money, money, money.
And they hand whoever they have to hand a blank check and say, he's ours now, yeah.
So if it's true, which we don't know, it's not confirmed, but if it's true, does that excite you? And do you think that opens the door for more of the Netflix characters to potentially be in the MCU films?
I think it does, and I'm very excited about it because I love the Daredevil show, but also at the same time, all these reports are true. There's a lot being packed into this movie, and would Daredevil just feel like too much? I feel like I don't want to see Daredevil. I want to see Murdoch, Matt Murdock. Sorry, blanked on his name there for a minute. I don't want to see Matt Murdock maybe as his lawyer or something like that, but having Daredevil show up with it. But I mean, it would establish that, especially with Disney Plus going to be launching in all the shows connecting to the movies. It would definitely be a good precedent. And in terms of the characters from the shows, I'd be happy to see them if done correctly.
Yes, I agree. Well, Nick, thank you so much for stopping by. Go ahead and tell the good people where they can find you online.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nick Iricchio. I'm not going to try to spell my last name out for you guys, so maybe Dalton can just have it pop on the screen like somewhere. Or not. That's fine. Good luck. Go to the Movie Nights page, hit like, and then go to followers and scroll till you see my face.
Yes, good. Thank you so much for stopping by, buddy.
No problem. Hope to be on more.
So that's all we're going to do for today's episode of the Movie Nights show. This show normally would be sort of part of the Movie Nights podcast if you were a fan of that. The podcast is going to be monthly now, and it's going to be all interview stuff, kind of just sit down shooting the shit about movies. This is sort of a good test first episode. Obviously, in the future episodes, there's going to be a lot more research, a lot more heartfelt energy. We'll hopefully have more guests like we had with Nick on. Let me know some stuff you guys would like to see be incorporated and be a part of the movie show. And thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.